So in this video, we're going to look at how to create that turret, make it move with the tank, and make it shoot. Well, we'll probably do shooting in the next video. Keep in mind, these are made for Year 11 digital technology and Year 10 digital technology in New Zealand. So I'm taking an approach that may not necessarily be the most best approach if you were looking at actually getting into game development, but it's an approach that's easy to understand so that you can take it further and learn from these. So I'm going to click the tick here. This is my turret. With this, I'm going to set the origin of the turret to be the point that I want to spin around. Okay, obviously I don't want this to be the origin because then it's going to start spinning around that. It'll look like a big mallet. So I want this to be the origin about here. I've called it sprite turret already, and I'll click OK on both of those. So I'm going to make a new object now, create a new object, and I'm going to call it SPR turret. Give it the sprite turret. Now, a resource with this name already exists. Oops, obj turret. I often make that mistake. And I'll click OK. Now, I'm going to make all the code in my tank player. There's a reason for this. I think it's really, GameMaker is really powerful, much more than people give it credit for. And we're going to look at how to actually manipulate this object from within here. So in here, I'm going to add a step event. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some code in. I'm going to put a little label on this. Move the turret to the tank. Now what that's going to do, instead of saying execute a piece of code here, it's going to say move the turret to the tank, which is what I should do on these as well. So I'll just go back through and do them. /, 3 slashes. 2 slashes is just a general comment. 3 // at the top of a event block. We'll put it in here. So this is turn left, and this here will be turn right. Okay, so it puts that in. So looking at it, move forward. Looking at it, I can instantly see what this code block is meant to do. It's really good for efficient working, also working independently. Move. Oh, this one's stop. Stop moving. Okay, so that's the tank. But now in the step event. The step event is an event that occurs every single frame in the game. Currently, you can see how many frames are going to occur per second by going to the settings of the room and looking at the speed. 30 FPS is really 5 years ago, so let's go with 60 FPS now and bump up the speed. Unless your computer is slower and can't handle that 60 FPS, but it's likely that most computers today will be able to handle a 60 FPS GameMaker game. So you should be fine turning it up to 60 FPS. So 60 times a second is going to do this. It's going to move the turret to the tank. So what we do is we go object turret.x. Now this is the x property that belongs to the object turret. Okay, equals x. Now this x property belongs to the tank. Okay, now we could do this. We could type self.x, and this is actually probably a better way to do it, just to differentiate between the object turret and other things. So I'm going to do it this way. Object turret.y equals self.y. Now the x and y position, if I go into the room, just in case you're not sure, just take a look down here. This is the coordinates in the room. GameMaker's 2D, we only have 2 coordinates. GameMaker can do 3D, but it's not suitable for it. It's very complicated. You need to know how to program in direct 3D. So down here, X and Y. You see as I move the mouse around, the X and Y coordinates change. Now, this also has an X and Y coordinate in the room. Currently, it's set to 160 and 96. So at the start of the game, the object turret.x and object turret.y are going to be set to the X and the Y of the tank. And the X position, it's not going to just set it to the corner here, it's going to set it to that pivot point, which I set up here. And so it's going to kind of snap those 2 pivot points together. So this will work. All I have to do is just put the turret in the room somewhere. I can put it over here, it doesn't matter. I mean, it makes sense to put it right there, but I'm going to put it here. just so you can see that as soon as the room starts, it goes over to the tank. It's there, but it's actually behind it. So I'm just going to change the depth of this object. The lower the number, the higher the depth. Okay? So that's well, the lower the number, the deeper the depth. But basically, if you want something to appear on top of something else, just make the depth number lower. You can go as negative as you want. There's no limit to how negative you can go. I'm just going to put -10 in case I want to put a few things in between there. All right, so there it is. It's snapped to it. You can see over here, that's where it was. That's where it is now. And as I move the tank around, that goes there. Because I haven't told the turret to update, it's constantly pointing to the right. And now what we're going to do is make the turret point towards the mouse. Okay, so we've got an actual proper tank controller here. And step event, I'll do it in here as well. Okay. It's a good idea to try and consolidate your code in one place. If all the code is for the player object, then try and put it in the player, even if it's controlling other objects. I mean, most games you're going to just have the player object. It'll be a little character running around. But because we're doing it this way, with an object tank player and an object turret, then we're going to keep them together. So what am I going to do? I am going to go with object turret. Now, with is a really, really handy construct in GameMaker that allows you to write code as in a script as though you were writing it on the other object. So now I can just pretend like I'm writing this on the object turret, and I don't need to worry about using object turret.x, object turret.y, etc. I can just write it as normal. What I'm going to do is make the direction of the object turret equal, I'm going to use a special function here called point direction. This function takes what are called arguments. And if you know any basic maths, with 2 points, so 2 xy coordinates, you can draw a straight line. Okay, so what it needs here is the xy coordinate, the first one and the second one. And we're going to make it point from the first one to the second one. So the first one is going to be just the x and y. So self.x, self.y. This won't actually, I don't think this will actually work if we do it this way, because self will refer to the tank. So we'll just go x and y. That is the x and y of the object turret. In fact, let's leave that part out for now and just do it the way that we have been doing it so far. So obj turret.x, obj turret.y. That's the origin. And over here we'll go obj turret.direction equals point direction there. And then we're going to point to mouse x, mouse underscore y. So mouse underscore x, mouse underscore y. These are global properties that keep the x and y coordinate of the mouse position. So what's going to happen is it's going to make this point in the direction of the mouse. Okay, so from the turret's origin to the mouse, it's going to draw a line and figure out the direction. Lastly, we need to go image angle equals direction. Image angle of the object turret dot direction equals object turret dot direction. Okay, so here, change direction of turret to point to mouse. Okay, so this looks quite complicated, but it's not really. All we're doing is saying the property, the direction property, there's loads of different object properties, by the way. Trying to cover the most obvious ones: direction, x, y, speed, image angle, the things that you'll need to make a pretty basic game. And what it does is it changes the direction property of the object turret using a function that figures out the direction it should point to. And I say, well, this is the x and y origin, and this is the place I want it to point to. So that's updated. This will figure out and perform some maths and figure out what direction from 0 to 359 it should point. And then we update the image angle of our turret to the new direction. So pretty much the same as this here, except for the turret. So I hit play, and now I should be able to move my turret around. See, it points towards the mouse, and it all looks pretty good. Okay, so next video we'll make the bullet. Oops, I haven't got a reverse button. I could probably add in a reverse button in there. Or maybe you can add a reverse button. That's a pretty good task. It's going to be very similar to this. Maybe you don't want to go backwards as fast. Okay, so you could, so speed equals negative move speed, maybe divided by 2, and put some calculations in there to figure out how to do a reverse on your tank.